Good morning, Commissioners. Stephanie Murley, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, here to present the OMB item. The first item is a permission to apply for the FY21 Federal Transit Administration Bus and Bus Facilities Formula Grant Program funds. The requested grant award is for $121,430 to purchase a fixed route bus service. There is no grant match required. The second item is permission to apply for the 2024 Waterways Assistance Program grant for the replacement of the Charlie Leeton Park boat ramp. The requested grant award is for $700,000 to fund a portion of the construction costs to replace the existing boat ramp at Charlie Leeton Park. There is a $700,000 grant match required, which is budgeted within the Parks and Recreation Department's capital improvement plan budget. Item number 3 is a permission to apply for the fiscal year 2025 alternative water supply project funding. The Utilities and Solid Waste Department is requesting a grant award of $3,047,000 for the construction of the North Water Treatment Plant Floridan Well. Martin County is required to have a 50% project match, which is budgeted within the Utilities and Solid Waste Capital Improvement Plan. Number 4 is adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. We have withdrawn item A, so item B is the allocation of funds for FY 2024 salary adjustments. The FY 24 adopted budget included salary adjustments based on the Teamsters contract. This funding is placed in reserves in the FY 24 adopted budget, and this item just requests the approval to transfer those funds into the various departments to adjust their budgets. And last but not least, I have our bond counsel here. We are authorizing the lease purchase financing for the acquisition of fire equipment. The county prepared and advertised a request for proposal for a tax-exempt, non-bank qualified master lease purchase agreement for an amount not to exceed $2.5 million to purchase one custom pumper and one custom 75-foot ladder truck. The county received 6 responses to the RFP, which was reviewed by our financial advisors and bond counsel. Staff has reviewed and concurs with the financial advisor's recommendation that the Bank of America's proposal for lease purchase financing the equipment is the most advantageous. The proposed indicative interest rate is 3.9228% for 7 years to be repaid over 7 years in the amount of $407,410 from ambulance fees. And that is all of my items today.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Catalina.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say it.
so just in, are you ready?
Yeah.
Stephanie, in the motion process, does Dwayne need to do, are we doing any kind of presentation at all, or they're just here if we had questions?
We can do a presentation if you'd like, but they're just here for questions if
I
needed.
didn't want to take away, like, if you had this wonderful presentation prepared that, okay. I would move staff's recommendation with the exception of item 4B, which was pulled or continued to a later date.
4A.
Or A.
4A.
Or A.
Second.
4A or 4B?
A.
A.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Hetherington absent. Now we need to take a break again
To sign the,
for 5 minutes?
yes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, and to sign some documents, and we will be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody or just?
right, we are back once again, and we're going to move to Department Quasi Judicial Number 1, request approval for the Second Amendment to the Discovery Plan Unit Development PUD zoning agreement H123-024, including a revised master phasing plan and Phase 2A final site plan, being presented by Mr. Brian Elam.
Good morning, Commissioner. Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. This is a
Oh,
quasi judicial
yes,
proceeding.
You're right, I'm sorry. Commissioner Campy neglected to remind me. Okay. For everybody that is going to be testifying, please stand and raise your hand and be sworn in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do we have any interveners?
No interveners in this hearing.
Interveners, okay, has all the proper paperwork been turned in?
I have a copy of the agenda item in my work history
There we go.
to turn in for Exhibit 1. And copy of the applicant's resumes to turn in as Exhibit 2.
Okay. And now we need to ask for ex parte. Do you have any?
If I do, they're filed.
If I do, they've been filed?
If I have any, they've been filed.
If I have any, they've been filed.
Okay. And with that, I think we got it, right?
You got it.
Okay. Please.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Brian Elam, Principal Planner with Growth Management Department. This is a request by Lucido and Associates on behalf of Discovery Hope Sound Investors LLC requesting approval of the Second Amendment to the Discovery PUD zoning agreement, which includes a revised master site plan, phasing plan, and Phase 2A final site plan. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. The proposed amendment relocates the 18 golf cottages from the main golf and lake clubhouse tract to the short course clubhouse tract and revises the phasing plan to consolidate the road and lot development that were previously within Phases 4A and 5 and incorporates them into Phase 2A. There are a few changes to the Exhibit F Special Conditions section of this proposed amendment. Paragraph 14 has been modified to tie the completion of the traffic signal for the project entrance prior to the issuance of the 20th certificate of occupancy for a residential unit in Phase 2A. Paragraph 20 has been added and authorizes the temporary use of septic tanks for golf-related structures in accordance with the applicable standards provided in Policy 10.2A.8.9 of the Martin County Comprehensive Growth Management Plan. All temporary wells and septic tank systems must be removed and all structures connected to water and sewer no later than December 23rd, 2026. And paragraph 21 and Exhibit H have been added. Exhibit H is a typical lot landscape plan that exceeds the minimum tree and native landscape requirements and ensures perimeter lot landscape areas are designed to create a corridor of native planting between lots and other areas. Paragraph 21 requires a letter from the Atlantic Fields Architectural Review Board documenting compliance with the typical lot guidelines be submitted with a building permit application. Here's an aerial of the Discovery PUD with the development overlay. You can see the Row 23 Golf Club in the northwest, Atlantic Ridge Preserve, existing agricultural production to the east, and to the west, a large agricultural ranch, and fronting Bridge Road is the Polo Club. This is the proposed revised master site plan. There's not many changes other than the golf cottages being moved from one tract to another. The preserve area and all the remains the same, and the lots are relatively unchanged, with a minimum half-acre requirement being satisfied. There's a blow-up of the southern portion and the northern. Phase 2A, this is the proposed Phase 2A final site plan. It includes the construction of roads, utilities, and drainage improvements for all 317 single-family lots, adjoining common areas and future development tracts, including construction of a traffic signal at the project's main entrance on Bridge Road and construction of a public access road from Bridge Road to the existing equestrian and staging area that are to be dedicated to the Atlantic Ridge Preserve State Park. Review of this application by the local planning agency is not required. Development review staff have reviewed this application and find it to comply with the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and all applicable land development regulations, and staff recommends approval. Staff recommends the board move to receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1. Move the board approve the Second Amendment to the Discovery PUD zoning agreement, including the revised master and phasing plans. And move the board approve the Discovery PUD Phase 2A final site plan. And move the board receive and file the copy of resumes for the applicant as Exhibit 2. And that concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none. Applicant.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Bob Rains, land use attorney with the Gunster Law Firm here on behalf of the applicant. We appreciate your time this morning. We appreciate staff's time and effort on this project. As Mr. Elam said, we have a staff recommendation of approval. We've reviewed and received that staff report and certainly agree with the comments, the conclusions, and the recommendations in that report. I would like to have Mr. Crady come up and make a short presentation. And of course, I'll ask him a few questions before and after, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. So, Mr. Crady, can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Morris Crady.
And have you been sworn in, sir?
I have.
And can you give us a brief history of your education and work
Yes.
experience, please?
I'm senior partner with Lucido and Associates. Also certified with the American Institute of Certified Planners and been performing land planning services in Martin County for over 40 years.
Okay. And can you identify the document I've handed you,
Yes,
sir?
that's my resume. Yeah.
And is that current and accurate?
Yes.
I'd like just for the record to reflect that that's one of the documents that was handed in as part of applicant's exhibits that Mr. Elam submitted into the record. And you prepared, can you tell us what your role in this project was?
Yes, I coordinated the final site plan and PUD amendment process with our development team and through the Martin County Development Review process.
And you prepared the presentation you're about to show us?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just have a brief presentation just to give you a little bit of history. Again, you know where the project site is located. This is looking towards the east. We're about a mile east of the I-95, and you're surrounded by the Atlantic Ridge State Park on these two sides, agricultural land on the west side, and this is the Grove Golf Course, which is about 225 acres. The entire site's about 1,530 acres. And this is what the approved master plan looks like from a rendering perspective. Again, this is the habitat restoration area that's being restored. Phase 1B has been approved. Phase 1B authorized the construction of almost 200 acres of lakes, 125-acre habitat restoration area. And as you know, it's all of our water is coming from agricultural runoff from the Hope St. Lucie Conservancy District. We're taking all of that water, using it to irrigate the golf course. We're also treating water for about 3,000 acres of other agricultural lands, all before any water is discharged into the South Fork of the St. Lucie, which is in this area. The changes to the master plan are minimal. We are relocating the golf cottages, as mentioned by Brian. We combined all of the residential phases into a single phase, Phase 2A, and the changes that we're making are all to be consistent with a plat that hopefully will come before you next month, and that will allow us to close on about 80 lots that are ready to be closed on. The Phase 2 final site plan includes the construction and donation of the public access road that's going to be dedicated to the state park. It includes the donation of the equestrian facilities to Atlantic Ridge Preserve State Park. I should also mention that Phase 1B also included the donation of the Hope Sound train station to the Hope Sound or Martin County Historical Society. And we're also going, Phase 2A include the construction of a traffic signal on Bridge Road. So the public access road that's being constructed and authorized by Phase 2A is in this location. It's about a mile-long road, and this is the equestrian facilities that are being donated to the state park. And this will serve as the base for equestrian trails, bicycle trails, and also pedestrian access to the park system. And then again, the habitat restoration area is in this area, and we're looking to hopefully complete the site work within a couple years, and it's probably take that long to get under construction for the first home. Will be about 2 to 3 years out. So with that understanding, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Commissioner Smith?
Morris, thank you. Can you go back in your presentation? I forget if your first slide showed it or not. The two sites that you had next to each other, or the two images?
Let's see. I don't know if I had two images. You might be talking about one of Brian's
It was
slides.
Brian's slide. Can you pull up?
Sure.
I just think it's worth noting that for the many years that we have been talking about this property and what will become of it when we were dealing with it all becoming Polo. Okay, great. Sort of great. What you can't see under the green, and I thought that there was another image that was clearer, that's all row ag, right, underneath of that green? There are no wetlands, there is nothing there at today's point, correct?
Correct.
And I think what would be helpful, and, well, actually, you can see it on the right-hand slide.
Yeah, you can see it.
So if you zoom in,
There's a lots, 20-acre lots in the roads that were previously approved for the
down
Polo.
a little bit more, Brian. No, come down a little bit. No, sorry, to the top of the page. There you go, thank you. So all of that former pasture land or whatever that actually was, once a long time ago, was what you see the mosaics of wetlands that are in those jelly bean shaped sort of ideas. And one of the things that we talked about 15 years ago or so in the polo field idea came about was to get this reconnected, the northern piece of this, to the wetland system. And so I understand it, but can you share a little bit about how it's going to reconnect and what we'll achieve for the Atlantic Ridge?
Yeah, my understanding is that the system, you can see where it was cut off, was moving water from the east to the west into the South Fork of the St. Lucie River, but it has been backed up by the agricultural operations that have occurred on the site. So that water actually has been backing up to the east and flooding the pine flatwoods.
With your mouse, just to, or
Pardon?
draw with the mouse to show.
Yeah, well, you can see, yeah, if you can just,
Right, but if people don't.
Talking about-
yeah, yeah. Let me see.
Ryan, are you driving or he's
Yeah.
driving? Great, thank you.
Yeah, so the historical flow of water went through here into the South Fork of the St. Lucie River. So that was a natural wetland system that moved water from the east to the west. So that's what's being restored because what's been happening is that water has been bunching up here and affecting the pine flatwoods and the trail systems out there. So that will restore that flow of water.
And how
the natural
large
flow.
roughly is that area?
It's 125 acres of land that's currently.
And will the perimeter ditch be removed or is it staying?
There will be a perimeter ditch just to control the elevations. It's still being, yeah.
Right. And then you also touched on the Hope Sound Conservancy District and the water use that it will be dealing with. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the water that Hope St. Lucie Control District controls starts on the west side of the turnpike and moves, Darren can probably speak better to that than I can, but if I say anything wrong, Darren, our engineer, he'll speak up, I'm sure. But there's millions of gallons of water right now that flows directly into the South Fork of the St. Lucie, into the St. Lucie River. We'll be, like in the other golf course under Rural Lifestyle, we'll be diverting that water into 200 acres of lakes on this project. And also, that water includes runoff from about 3,000 acres of agricultural lands that, again, we'll be taking into our lake system and treating it through our stormwater treatment areas prior to any discharge into the South Fork of the St. Lucie. And the discharge is through a canal system here that eventually meanders its way into the South Fork. So there'll be 10 times the treatment that currently runs off the land under the agricultural operations under this revised plan.
So for decades, if I can paraphrase for you, that water has not been treated for decades.
Correct.
And so with Grove 23 and Discovery, we're capturing 3,000, you said, plus acres of ag runoff that otherwise would not have been cleaned.
Correct.
And also, the consumption of water for the courses, I assume, is in the millions of gallons per day.
Yes.
So when we talk about these things, that part of the story I don't think should get lost on anyone, especially where the lake is discharging these days, and people are obviously very concerned about how much water is going to the estuary. And in this case, the water that would normally have been going to the estuary through rural fallow ag without any treatment whatsoever is getting treated.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. You want a motion, something, or public comment?
Public comment. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, then that,
Thank you.
is that for this item?
No, I don't think so.
That would be great timing if
Ma'am, is this for this item or 505?
she's in her purse.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And not seeing any other public comment, I'll take a motion. Commissioner Smith?
I would move staff's recommendation for approval.
You want? Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm not going to be supporting the motion. This is a very, very urban, suburban development that's completely incompatible and inappropriate with its neighboring uses.
Commissioner Smith?
Morris, can you come back up, please? Sorry. What is the overall density of this project, and how many acres do you know off the top of your head?
Oh, it's 317 units on 1,530 acres. This is 1 unit per 5 acres.
And the other acreage that was put into conservation?
Right, that's 800 acres. In order to get the bump from 1 unit per 20 acres to 1 unit per 5 acres, they had to dedicate 800 acres of agricultural land, which is the Becker Tree Farm, and remove all units off of that land and include it as agricultural conservation area in perpetuity.
So the density is comparable to Palm City Farms, which is 1 to 5?
Well, if you take into consideration the 800 acres, it's about 1 unit per 7.5 acres of land. So about one
Palm City Farms is 1 to 5.
per 5, yeah.
So it's greater than
Yeah,
what
it's-
exists out there. And would you, in your professional opinion, would you consider that suburban or urban?
No, not at all. It's rural. That's
Thank you.
absolutely. Yep.
Show the plat and see how rural it looks.
Okay. Once again, we had a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Hetherington absent. Thank you. Okay. Now, for the birthday girl,
Happy birthday to you, miss.
Department 2, contracts that meet the threshold of board approval, 1 million or greater, presented by Christy Brotherton, and it is her birthday today.
Bring her family out. This is your surprise party.
I'm good, thank you. Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. I have one item for your consideration today. It's the Martin County Fire Rescue Burn Building, and staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, One Call Florida, in the amount of $1,748,022, and move that the board approve the revised CIP sheet to fund the bid award. And last, move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Well, that was-
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Ms. Brotherton, appreciate it. I know that our members of our fire administration is here. I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that we're continuing with what has been a multi-year promise we had made, the commission majority had made to members of our fire rescue and then also members of our community by originally replacing and rehabbing very old, out-of-date, well past their functional use fire stations, which I think we have completed. And then the final large capital improvement was the fire training facility. For residents that are not familiar, we did not have one in our county, and our personnel and our equipment would drive up to Fort Pierce for the most part to train, taking our members out of local service and taking our equipment up into, through a county to an additional county to do this. I think this is a great step in the right direction. The final step of the training facility, I know we're going to be at a ribbon cutting soon for the training building and now for the fire tower. I think this is another step in the right direction for our men and women of fire rescue to be trained in the latest and most up-to-date training with equipment and techniques to not only protect our residents, but to protect themselves, which I think is paramount. So I happily make the motion to accept.
With public, do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, Commissioner Smith? Oh, okay. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Heatherington absent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last item, Department Number 3, Transit Development Plan, TDP, Major Update Progress Report by Jeffrey Widener of Marlin Engineering and Jessica McKay of Kittleston and Associates. And our lovely Beth Beltran.
Good morning.
And Ash.
I'm Beth Beltran, MPO Administrator. I'm here to introduce the Martin County Transit Development Plan, also known as the TDP. This is a required document that's required by the state of Florida in order for the county to get transit funds. I am here with Lucine Martins, who has been the project manager, or is the project manager of the TDP. We have been working very closely with Ash Beecher, the transit administrator for Martin County, as well as the general planning consultant for the MPO, Jeff Widener from Marlin Engineering, and their subconsultant, Kittelson and Associates, and Jessica Mackey is here from Kittelson. The purpose of the MPO was requested by the county to about 18 months ago or so to fund and develop this plan, this work effort. We've been doing a lot in the last 18 months, working very closely, working very hard to get a lot of public input as part of this project, and we're very excited to give you the update this morning on this. And with that, I will pass it over to Jeff Widener.
Thank you, Beth, and I just want to recognize Jessica Mackey, with Kittelson Associates, a major sub on this project. First of all, just an outline of our presentation for today. Beth just mentioned the purpose of a TDP, a Transportation Development Plan. It's required by the state of Florida to receive the operating block grant. There are 30 transits in the state of Florida, and the state of Florida wants to see a business plan, and its requirement is a 10-year business plan, and every 5 years, each of the transits receiving the funds must do a major update. The scope of work, Project management and public outreach have been happening throughout the process. We just closed our survey at the end of February. We got 732 responses. But we've gone through the baseline conditions report. That report is in your agenda package. And along with the performance assessment and the transit demand analysis we've completed. And now we're starting to game the 10-year business plan with potential improvements and a 10-year financial plan that'll identify the fixed budget and unfunded needs for an aspirational plan. Just a quick refresher, your system has 5 routes. It's a pretty much linear system along US 1, but also has a connection or a lifeline to the Village of Indiantown community. 5 routes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Route 1 dominates your ridership. It is the US 1 route, 35-minute headway being the time between buses, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Route 2, it's 35 minutes within Indiantown, but every 2 hours back and forth to the Moorgate Library to Indiantown. Route 3 is a loop around the Stewart area. Route 4 is a relatively new route. It's in its 4th year now, and it goes down to South Stewart and Hobe Sound. 20 Express is a route that connects to the VA hospital in West Palm Beach, and it's an express route, and it must have at least a 5-mile segment of line haul with no stops to be called an express route. What's been happening in the last 5 years? So, in looking back, we're going to see the before and after effects of COVID. COVID was very detrimental to transit across the country. Looking here on the left, we see Marty in the blue histogram. So in 16, 17, 18, and 19, Marty ridership was going up. In the background is the state of Florida trends, and here are the national trends compared to Marty. The United States reached its highest transit ridership in 2014. And starting in 2014, almost all transits across the board were going down in the country. There's been a lot of speculation about the cause of that. One of the things that probably had an impact was the evolution of transportation network companies. As Uber and Lyft were evolving, perhaps people that had the opportunity were switching from public transit to that type of trip making. Then COVID hit, and it was pretty detrimental to the entire system. Marty did not shut down, but your ridership went down. People were apprehensive about getting on transit. Here we're showing all the way out to fiscal year 23. Marty has been growing in leaps since COVID. From 21 to 22, there was a 27% increase. And a 16% increase up to 107,000 in FY fiscal year 23. So part of the TD process is to take a look at your peers. So we did an assessment of all of the transits in Florida and across the country. We came up with 5 systems to compare to. This is a table of Marty and the 5 systems with 5 different metrics. So looking at service area, Marty is a fairly constrained system. Again, it's linear, 65 square miles, while the others are much higher, except for Napa County, California. Service population, very similar to Indian River, Bay County, somewhat similar to Napa County, and then Collier County and St. Lucie County, which is your neighbor to the north. The Marty system has the lowest operating cost, a little bit over $3 million, and then we're looking at the costs for the other agencies. Passenger trips, the lowest passenger trips compared to your peers. Indian River GO Line is the gold standard for the state of Florida. They get more riders per population than any other system in the state. They have ridership compared to counties with 3 and 4 times the population of Indian River. And then the operating expense. Your operating expense is very high. In fiscal year '23, it did go down to $26.70 per rider. During the transit efficiency study, which we did prior to the TDP, we got direction from y'all to focus on ridership, ridership, ridership. You know, getting more riders is going to bring this cost down. So why is Indian River doing so well? First of all, the accessibility to the community, 92% of Indian River residents live within 3/4 of a mile. You're at 58% here in Martin County. It's a fare-free system. Marty is a Monday through Friday system, and Indian River has weekend service. You know, one of the base transit rider cohorts is the working class or service workers, hotels, restaurants, hospitals. They need service 7 days a week, or at least 6 days a week. But the systems focus on their trip generators. They have a centralized hub. It's very well marketed. The efficiencies of the route. It's coordinated with the Transportation Disadvantage Program. You have a separate system for transportation disadvantage and for Marty. Physical barriers, they have a very good grid network for the most part in Indian River County, and they have more flexibility with their resources. Public involvement is one of your directives. We reallocated resources and we scheduled 6 public outreach events, 1 in each commission district. We did 2 in Commission District 3 because Village of Indiantown and Hobe Sound are so far apart. We did not do traditional, we're going to be here, come to meet us. We located ourselves in places where we could intercept people going to the library, parents going to pick up their children at aftercare centers, the Jim and at Jensen event, and it was really a lot of fun and an opportunity to get to talk to a mix of people. At Jim and Jensen, we talked to a lot of snowbirds and people from out of town. They talked a lot about regional transit connections. The folks in underserved communities like Golden Gate and out in Indiantown, we were surprised they didn't know a lot about the system. They knew the buses went through their neighborhood and went by the bus stop, but they didn't know where they were going to end up. Predominantly Spanish-speaking populations. We had 4 people that were bilingual, and we got a number of surveys in Spanish. Overall, we got 732 people to take the survey. 26% had said they have used the system, and 74% they said they did not. So we asked users, what would you like to see to make Marty better? Number 1, 29% was Saturday service, and Sunday at 16%. So weekend service sort of dominated their request or their needs. Followed by later service, again, span of service, more hours per day and more days per week. Then followed by new routes, more benches, and better sidewalk connections at the bottom. Ask the non-users why you didn't use Marty. We heard 33% says just faster to go buy a car. Considering the level of auto ownership in the community, that was kind of low. But, you know, they also indicated they don't know where it goes, or it doesn't go where they want to go, and it's inconvenient. We had a stakeholder committee that included the social services agencies, Public Works, the City of Stewart, and we asked those folks, and they were part of the process. We had 3 meetings with them, and we asked them to prioritize and give us some guidance on what objectives we should be looking at for improvements. Added stops was at 39%, more frequency in weekend service, and earlier and later service. So in order to improve ridership, we looked at 3 types of improvements. Service types, improving the existing service, mostly looking at span of service, hours of the day, days of the week, and then bus stop infrastructure. One thing we did do, in addition to the scope, is we actually contacted the microtransit agencies. I'm going to call them Transportation Network Companies is the term, TNCs used in the industry. And we had an hour-long conversation with Circuit, Uber, Via, and Freebie. They have some very interesting services where they can support and supplement transit services with first mile, last mile, and micromobility or microtransit, which are smaller vehicles that can penetrate into your community and connect to a fixed bus route instead of running fixed buses through neighborhoods. And then we developed a new vision and goal. Basically, a 2014 TDP in 2019 was the same. We created an extended statement that said safe, efficient, convenient public transportation that is well understood by the public. We heard from a number of people that they don't know how the system operates and where they can end up and how to use the system. With that, I'm going to have Jessica come up and talk about the transit gap analysis and some of the recommendations we're thinking of.
Good morning. So the transit gap analysis brings together technical data that was reviewed from the baseline conditions as well as a trip hotspot analysis that we conducted. The areas in yellow shown on this slide are areas that lie outside the quarter of a mile from an existing bus stop that also have a demand for transit. So these areas might have areas that have a high proportion of transit-dependent populations, like folks who are lower income, older adults, or zero-car households, or they're areas that have a concentration of trip generators, and those are shown as the red dots on this map. And you'll see that most of these red dots are within the existing service area boundary, which is a great thing. Marty's covering a lot of trip generators. However, there are a few that lie outside of areas such as those in Palm City, Southeast Cove Road, the Barrier Island, and Port Salerno. And those areas, you'll see that they're yellow on the map. So moving on to planning strategies, the planning strategies we developed are based on feedback from outreach and the transit gap analysis. And we started to develop 4 different strategies that we grouped into scenarios. The first scenario is the low-cost one where we identified improvements that could be made in the short term. The second one is based on the need to have more weekend service and later service, so we were looking at different ways where we could increase the span of service. The third one is adding bus stops, and we strategically based them based on the transit gap analysis and feedback that we received during outreach. And the last one is our more aspirational network, where we explore increasing connectivity and creating an intermodal hub in Stewart. And as an update, we estimated costs and ridership numbers for several of these strategies, and that feeds into how they will be ranked. The rankings will be based on objectives that we've drafted, like efficiency, which is measured in the change in cost per rider, whether the service will target underserved communities, et cetera. So for scenario 1, that's our low-cost scenario. We know today that the bus schedules are not coordinated within MARTY or connecting systems in St. Lucie or Palm Beach. The riders today are having long transfer times to their connecting bus, so we think it's a high priority need to improve transfer timings through a comprehensive operational analysis study. Targeted marketing campaign. Based on the outreach, we heard from people on the ground that many folks were not aware that MARTY exists. They didn't know where the buses go, so we think a targeted marketing campaign that leverages South Florida commuter services would help get the word out about service and improve ridership. Scenario 1 also includes 4 potential route improvements that are cost neutral, and that could also increase ridership. The first one is extending Route 2 to the Robert Morgade Library, from the Robert Morgade Library to the Walmart in Stewart. So you'll see that as the green dotted line right here. The second one involves Route 3. The route currently uses 2 vehicles, and some of the segments, like along Southeast Monterey Road, are unproductive. So we think splitting the route into 2 routes, 2 one-way routes, would better serve a number of important destinations like the Cleveland Hospital, the social services on Palm Beach Road, the Fresh Market Shopping Center, the Golden Gate CRA, Walmart, the Health Department. the high school, there are several developments along Canner Highway, and several more that have no service today. So we think this will expand the service area. Also, in the bottom loop, we've added service to the Walmart here, and this would provide better connections to other routes since it's already a transfer connection. So that's another enhancement. The third route improvement is to Route 20X. We heard from folks that they'd like to have access to Tri-Rail. Route 20X has the potential to extend its terminus from the VA hospital to the Tri-Rail station in Mangonia. And then this fourth improvement is for Route 4. Right now, there's limited stops and limited crossing opportunities along US 1. So we think converting it to a flex route would more effectively service this service area. And if you aren't familiar with how flex route operates, it's essentially like a normal fixed route, but it allows deviations within specified zones along the route where riders can call in a day before to book a pickup within the service area. And by the way, Route 2 already has this feature within the Indiantown service area. An added bonus is that flex routes are not required to provide ADA paratransit service, so there may be potential cost savings there. Scenario 2 is based on the need for more hours of service, especially on weekends. Today, there's no weekend service for all the routes, and we know that there's a big need. There are some options. We could extend Marty's existing service to operate on Saturday and Sunday. Today, Marty's cost per trip is $26.70 per trip on weekdays, so that cost might actually be higher on weekends since there's less ridership on Saturdays and Sundays generally with transit agencies. We could also explore transportation networking companies in the service area within routes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Broward County Transit, they've implemented a program that's like a taxi partnership, and they reported a cost of $15.35 per trip in January of last year. If you want a more enhanced experience, we could explore microtransit with branded vehicles where riders can make real-time trip requests with the smartphone app. And because of it's a more enhanced service, it would cost a little more, so we're looking at roughly $15.50 per trip. And right now, we're working with the transit administrator and grants manager on the timing and mechanisms to fund a potential pilot program for this. So on this slide, we have some success stories about microtransit throughout South Florida, and one of the highlights is Pompano Beach. They actually were able to get their cost per rider to $2.28. So there's a number of case studies to look at and to learn from. So we included this. This is actually from a presentation that Circuit did. Jeff, did you want to cover this slide? Funding solutions?
Well, again, we had discussions with a number of these different vendors, and Freebie was one of the vendors. It's a Miami-Dade grown company. And, they're very proactive in working with the DOT, understanding how to use the service development program. And they also have a very unique approach to economic development. They allow the restaurants in the commercial properties that people will be searching for and then connect you to Freebie and have an economic development trip. That advertising is free on their app. All of their vehicles are electric, and they have different levels of vehicle types. Right now, the vehicle on the left, and they're very good at branding, but they're providing free connections for Tri-Rail service in Broward County. And basically, you get off the train, you scan a QR code, and a Tri-Rail branded vehicle, Tesla, will come and pick you up and take you to your job. We have an employee that does it every single day going back and forth. Lots of different services and a lot of competing companies. One of our policy recommendations is going to do some sort of a competitive bid to fit the bill on some of the recommendations we're making.
And Jeff, is the radius of that 3 miles from the train?
I believe it's 5 miles, but it might be 3 miles. But it's zonal.
So, there we go. So our third scenario is adding bus stops. There's a major need for adding bus stops. We've identified 40 potential locations that include the Kane Center, La Jolla, House of Hope. the Cleveland Clinic, the north and south one, the Publix at Canner Crossing, and then there's several locations along US 1 that you'll see as the yellow dots on this map. We also want safe access to these bus stops. And obviously, the downside to having more bus stops is that the bus schedule would need to be reassessed. But we think that increasing access to people and jobs is well worth the trade-off. The fourth scenario is our aspirational network with a hub. So we envision having an intermodal center located in Stewart in proximity to the Brightline location, Brightline station, with time transfers. Since the time of the prior TDP, transit efficiency study, and throughout route outreach done for this TDP, we heard from folks that they'd like to see service to the beach. So we developed the Jensen Beach trolley alignment that's shown as the purple U shape that connects from the Treasure Coast Mall to the intermodal center that we proposed here. The Canner Highway route is this orange one. And so there's currently no service along that roadway, but there's several transit generators like public schools, there's a mobile home park, an upcoming Costco, the Cleveland Clinic, and several multifamily developments. We also identified 5 potential transportation networking company zones in Stewart, Palm City, Port Salerno, Jensen and Rio, and Indiantown. And the benefits to this approach would be enhanced safety, because there's a lack of safe crosswalks, sidewalks in many areas. It's a first mile, last mile solution, and it could be cost effective and actually increase ridership throughout the system as well, because GO Line actually experienced that increase in their fixed ridership once they implemented TNC zones. So if we did this through microtransit, again, we're looking at $15.50 per trip. And other policy and capital improvements we've identified, they include exploring a fare-free policy to increase ridership, which would address the concerns for empty buses potentially, adding bus shelters throughout the county, especially in areas like Golden Gate, working with the county to identify mid-block crossing locations, potentially using smaller transit vehicles, and we have some technology needs like replacing the Trip Spark hardware on buses and potentially implementing automatic passenger counts. And so the next steps, Jeff?
So just looking at line item 3, this has sort of been what's driving the schedule since before the holidays. The green dots were our public outreach events. And then in February, we went to we went to the MPO's 3 advisory boards and the policy board. And we are here today to meet with you in the beginning of, what is it, the middle of March already? Or it's the 11th, right? Or the 12th. But now we are gaming the implementation plan. We had a very productive meeting yesterday, and we're lining up a 10-year plan with the elements of low-no all the way up to aspirational, identifying the funding needs to implement some of these efforts. We plan on sharpening our pencils and working with Ash and Beth's team in the next 2 weeks to finalize that plan. In the meantime, we are putting together a bulk of the document right now. And in early April, we'll have the plan to Ash and his staff and to Beth, their review, and it'll be in the agenda package for your April 20. I keep saying I'm thinking I'm at the MPO, I apologize, at the MPO's meetings. And then the early May meeting of the policy board, and then we're coming back to you all for final document approval and transmittal to the DOT. The DOT the plan needs to be approved by December 31st. You're way ahead of the game. We'll probably get some comments from DOT, but it must be approved by the 31st to get your $500,000 from DOT July 1 of 25. And with that, we'll respond to any questions and answers.
Any questions?
Questions, we'll give you the answers.
This is the second time that most of us have heard this, so it's, for the public, that's probably why. Oh. Commissioner Campy just can't help himself, so go for it.
I saw and only heard the words Palm City mentioned once or twice. I know you know how I feel about this. Palm City is the largest community in the county, 26,000 residents, and still no bus loop. I think it's some of what could be driving the conversation to increase ridership would be some kind of a loop, just even if you wanted to do a test loop. I know that if it doesn't get part of this plan, it won't necessarily do that. I've also asked my friendly colleagues up in Indian River County, like their philosophy and feeling about their system, and they're very bullish on it. I had asked them, but I prefer to do it through, Ash and Beth about perhaps having a field trip for the commissioners individually, of course, to go up and meet with ride their system, speak to their people, see what's what. Because, if you said to me, hey, there's a place in Oklahoma City that had a similar bus system that was great, I would say, okay, well, I don't really know how that relates to us, but we always consider Indian River our sister county. Population, demographic, logistically, it's our sister county. And if they are the premier system in the state of Florida, I can practically see them from my house. So with that in mind, I think we should really just try to duplicate as best we can what they're doing. I believe, and I've mentioned this to you when we were out at the library, I think it's probably a situation where it might take, potentially years to change the public's habit. Like when you say it's easier to get in the car, I know that having grown up in a community where the bus was what the kids rode, it was sort of fun. And it was the bus that took you to the beach or to the mall or to the movies. And as you were growing up, that's just, everyone knew that that's what you would do. I don't think we have that here, especially in Palm City where my kids grew up. And I think also in Florida, kids get their permits at 15 and can have driver's licenses at 16 years old. Where I grew up, you didn't get your license till you were 17, so you were sort of independent without a car, so you had really no choice but to ride the bus. I think it's probably sort of the norm here that when kids turn 15 or 16, the parents start considering a car for them. And you're not going to pump your bus system up, The marketing, we have our staff I would match them against anybody, but it's an uphill battle. But I think I would strongly recommend we just duplicate and copy. What do they say? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Let's imitate what they're doing in Indian River County. I bet, even if we got half of their ridership, what are they, over 1.1 million and we're 100,000? If we got half, it would be a huge success. So you can count me in for a trip if you want to speak to your counterparts in Indian River. I'd like to go and see firsthand what they're doing that maybe we could do. Thank you.
Agreed.
Do you need a motion for this?
Do you need any action on this item, or?
Yeah, just be clear on what you need from them to be able to move ahead for the final draft.
So your agenda package included the baseline conditions report, the 10-year transit demand report, and
Got it for you.
our goals.
I'd make a motion that we move that the board approve the Marty baseline existing conditions summary and transit demand gap analysis report, TDP goals with objectives, and the TDP draft scenarios.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. I don't think we get any public comment. Do we have any public comment? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Heatherington absent.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We have reached the end of our agenda, and we are at our 5:05 public comment with one public comment sheet, which is
This lovely woman right here.
this. Yes, ma'am, if you could pronounce your name, that'd be what.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Huguette Pameyer, and I'm here from the Stuart West community. And like many of you, I look back on a lifetime of community involvement. My last job was on the beautification committee in Sugarloaf Key, where I had to work on restoration after the Hurricane Irma, planted trees along our Sugarloaf Boulevard, and I deputized the installation of dog waste collection stations to another person. I want to thank, in particular, Commissioner Hurd, and in absence, Commissioner Hetherington. Excuse me. We wrote you letters under my and my husband's name to express our concern, and I thank you for responding or acknowledging receipt of the letter. It's very important to us. It's regarding the development proposal for a parcel adjacent to our Stuart West community, and the proposal is by the Revive Church. I want to establish that Stuart West is a very diverse community. Families, family constellations. We are of many faiths, many religions. Many people are lifelong, very dedicated practitioners of their faith. And I'm here to establish religion is not the issue. The issue is size. And every time I look at the website of Revive, their program offerings have expanded. And that is wonderful for them. For instance, the preliminary projection is for a 45,000 person or 45,000 square foot building. But during a recent presentation by Revive, it was stated that no, they are already considering 50,000. And I think you're all well familiar with the extremely challenging little corner that, is my time up?
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Okay. In conclusion, the proposed enterprise has already outgrown the proposed location. And so I'm here to emphasize the size, the traffic situation. We're on the cusp of a lot of economic development.
Now you're out of time. Yeah.
And a church is not economic development. It doesn't generate income for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, do we have any other comments from commissioners or, our county administrator wanted?
If you, I can finish this out. One thing, you gave us permission to work with Indiantown to provide building services for a month, and they were looking to contract with services with Port St. Lucie. That's not working out with them, and they would like to continue to develop a service with Martin County. So I would like to ask your permission to continue to operate as we are until we, and then we bring back a interlocal agreement on how we can provide that service to them. And I just need your permission to continue that service until I can bring back an agenda item that will fully describe an interlocal agreement.
For what services?
Building services, that would basically be processing their building permits for structural permits out of our building department.
And they're paying for this service?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Move that we ask the administrator and legal department to prepare the appropriate interlocal agreement and the continuation of the interim policy until that agreement can come back to us for the provision of building department services to Indiantown.
Thank you.
It doesn't, I mean, we have the capacity, additional capacity to handle their things. It's not going to hinder or impinge our residents, correct?
That's correct. And I think to be fair, also, the county had provided similar services to Sewell's Point in the past, and we've had other contracts with some of our municipal providers or interim service to the city of Seward. And the interlocal, when we bring it back, would fully describe how we could do that without impacting the services we're providing. They would certainly have to pay for it. There's some certain things, we've started drafting it already, but I wouldn't be asking for this if I didn't think that we could actually provide the service for them.
Understood, just knowing that Sewell's Point and City of Stewart is not nearly as large, or of what I know what Indiantown has on the horizon. That's not quiet, sleepy, unincorporated Indiantown. They're our residents, I appreciate that, but some of the projects that they have going out there, especially in capacity to our building department, are massive. I'll take you at your professional recommendation and second Commissioner Smith's motion.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, that was my concern also, is that Sewell's Point wasn't proposing Terra-Lago, which is 4,000 homes?
2,100.
Yes, and so to be clear,
Sounds to me like we need to be very, very careful about how we proceed.
the current amount of building permit activity out there is not at that level. I think as they grow, they will reabsorb and take over the program, but at the current level, it is not significant. If
We
we,
got a water plant to build before that happens.
so I don't know, we're not anticipating this agreement would be a permanent service. It would be reviewed, and then as they have the capacity to hire and fully utilize full-time staff as opposed to part-time, it would make sense for them to transition. But for the time being, as you said, we can handle that service.
Good. Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously, except for Commissioner Heatherington, or 4-0, Commissioner Heatherington absent.
And I do have a few other minor comments, but I can, so, sorry. Just wanted to say we had a county picnic on Saturday. It was a great success in my mind. A lot of things for our families and our kids, face painting and various activities. And the Lost River Outdoor Center was a great provider in kayaks, and people were able to do bicycle riding and canoeing and visiting one of our really beautiful facilities and on the North Fork of the St. Lucie. So just want to thank all the staff that came and those that helped put it together and our HR department. So thanks.
Very nice.
All right. And with that, our next meeting is,
I would like to wish my friend and colleague, tomorrow is his birthday, Commissioner Smith, happy birthday.
birthday.
No, it never slides by. No. The elder statesman, yeah.
Okay. With that, our next meeting is April 9th, 2024, and we are adjourned.
In that case, happy Easter, everybody.